Okay, so let's pick the brain right now. We are talking about how we derive to today, you know, what's available on blockchain today and use cases. Probably you can share your own opinion in the next 1 year or 2 years. How do you feel in terms of the take-up rate, in terms of corporates that is implementing blockchain or probably in the government sector? We have seen like the governments in Switzerland, this in Publiq initiative that you can exchange Bitcoin. And we also seen Estonia and a few other cases where not only government but the corporates should benefit out of it. And also a lot of startups, when they pitch, if you realize that they also, most of them are the intermediaries. In a way, blockchain is also eliminating these startups. So if you call yourself innovative and you are playing at the middle space, your innovative business might also get disrupted. So probably in your opinion, any one of you can share like in the next 1 or 2 years, you know, what would be the acceptance? What would be the trend?
I think it depends of, first, the industry we talk about, and also the regulation in that country as well. It has an impact. So we have seen currently, recently, that the SEC in the US published a paper saying that some of the ICO tokens are going to be considered as securities. So this is a sign that the industry is on the way to change. Now, if I take banking, for instance, of some very regulated industry, 2016 was the year of proof of concept. We were saying 2017 is the year of the pilots, and then we're going to have the first products in 2020. I'm less optimistic than that because I think that there's a lot of talk towards regulator standards. How do we make sure that if we implement a trade finance letter of credit blockchain, all the other participants will accept it? You know, there's a lot of talk to be done, a lot of democratization. So I think that starting from 2020, we might see the first use cases that becoming really live when it comes to, say, banking. But the first one for me is about supply chain, and I think that Rene is the expert of the day. And it's about, you know, food traceability in China, for instance. A lot of problems, traceability of luxury products, of traceability of healthcare, etc. This is an issue that we can solve right now, and that has real impact on I mean, the health of people. So obviously, there is a problem, there is a solution, and there is a need. So I think that there is a real potential on that.
Yeah. Okay. So you know, in 2016, in August, so exactly 1 year ago, I was a speaker at one conference in China. It's in the city of Qinhuangdao, which is about 300 kilometers from Beijing, and it was organized by a government agency of Chinese government, and it was about smart energy. You know, the topic of the conference was smart energy. And I was one of the speakers, and basically there were 10 speakers, and 8 out of 10 presentations over there were about the blockchain in energy. So everyone was building some kind of blockchain solution for, you know, energy. There were a lot of, you know, projects presented. And you know, the thing to note here is that in China there is a very strong top down, you know, approach, you know, from the government to implement blockchain, to innovate. So they are pushing it from the top, and probably during the deregulation, for instance, of the energy market in China, that would happen soon at the, you know, industry level. Because, for example, in Europe, a lot of people, you know, companies are Grid Singularity and, you know, energy blockchain foundation or whatever, you know, they are talking about the peer-to-peer, you know, from bottom to the top, but in China it's really top down. So, you know, governments definitely have power in this. So, especially centralized governments, yes. So if there is a political will, you know, to implement something, to innovate, I think it could happen pretty soon. And in some countries it already happened, you know, Estonia and so on. You know, their ID, you know, there are some POCs on blockchain really in Ukraine, in Odessa, you know, I call it, you know, province or whatever. They had. What was it? A tender platform, you know, for transparent tenders. When the former president of Georgia was the head of that province. So, but I don't know how it went afterwards. But there were a lot of, you know, a lot of activities in this area. So I think it will come pretty soon. But China could be one of the countries. We don't hear much, at least outside of China. I don't know, maybe in Malaysia we hear much more. But for instance, in Europe or US, we don't hear much about this. But there are a lot of things happening over there.
Just a short one. We are a bit forgetting about the cryptocurrencies, which is one of the applications or the use cases, international remittances, store of value, these things. Yeah, this is one application of blockchain, one of the first meaningful applications where trust was needed and not there. So the technology substitutes this institutional trust. So now we can remit one to each other using these blockchain-powered currencies. I feel that this is one of the first real use cases.
Okay.
Rather than a prediction, more like a hope, I guess. There are, like correctly pointed out, like cryptocurrencies definitely drive blockchain applications, and for very good reason. My hope is that within the next 1-2 years, there will be a suitable cryptocurrency that is user-friendly enough, or a blockchain application that is user-friendly enough for the people who are financially illiterate to use. So right now, a lot of cryptocurrencies have a very high knowledge barrier for people to join. Even though we say that, oh, it's completely peer-to-peer, it's like you be your own bank and things like that, but only people who are able to understand these kind of things, understand how to implement digital security, for example, are able to use it to its full potential. So my hope is that within the next 1-2 years, something that even somebody from the lower income group, or even people who are refugees, for example, can use it easily.
Fantastic. So I'm going to open questions to the floors. So, okay, yes, we have one gentleman here.
Hi.
Hello.
First of all, thank you to all the speakers for being here. So big round of applause for them. My name is Jason, aka Vandal. I come from the music industry. I've been involved in the music industry for many years, and I might be the only one here in the music industry, as a lot of people here are in the tech industry, and I kind of fell in love with the idea of blockchain and the revolution that it can bring, especially to the music industry by decentralizing. And I wanted to address this question to Matej, because I did see your slide about dissent music, and I just wanted to see maybe if you could elaborate a bit more on that for me.
Okay, so concerning dissent music, thank you for your question. Anyway, it's maybe we should applaud for the question again. So we get into the music industry. So basically, we have two business lines in this. We have one which is B2C, and one of them is B2B. So for the B2C business line or business strategy, we have a website called decentgo.com, which is currently in beta version. And we would have a content publishing feature on this website within few weeks. And this website basically allows any kind of artist or the producer of music to upload his or her own music on this website and sell it for a fee or distribute it for free. Yeah, we are not taking any fees from this platform, as our interest is basically to populate our platform, decentralized, decent platform with content. And this is not only for music, but this is one of those where people can publish music. Of course, we have desktop clients, as I showed on my slides, some of the screenshots. So this is downloadable from GitHub, and one can do it on his or her own desktop computer, just to upload it there. So this is B2C, and for B2B, we have some platforms with music, and those are putting their content on top of Decent. Yeah? So they are going to be integrated through our API, and the content will be stored on Decent. And why are they doing this? So basically the reason is that they are paying for the storage. Yeah, so it's with this decentralized storage is cheaper, and of course they also get an additional, marketing and sales, channel. There are a lot of challenges, I didn't address, especially in the music industry with copyrights, with licensing and so on. But of course we can elaborate further if you are interested.
Yeah, okay, definitely. Maybe I can speak with you afterwards?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, can we have anyone else?
Hi, thanks for this. My name is Caleb. I'm actually from the Trust and Corporate Services background. Actually, I think this question would be more targeted towards Alexandra. With regards to I believe you have mentioned earlier you had some experience with trying to get some of the KYC, maybe some of the financial institutions to use blockchain. Could you perhaps share with us what your experience had been with these financial institutions, as well as how do you see blockchain being relevant to the KYC or the AML industry?
So I think that identity comes out a lot when it comes to blockchain implementation and in most important use cases. And there is a real issue. I mean, who's managing our identity? How can we share it? How can we use it? And definitely there is a potential for blockchain to secure your data and to also give you the ownership of it. So, which means that you could share it to whoever you want at any point of time, okay? And it would be recorded into a single database, and it would be available for you to share it. Now, to speak about KYC and banking, for instance, it's I think when we talk about banking, the first impression I had is obviously there is this question of how much cost do I reduce using KYC? What are the problems I have implementing KYC between me and other banks? Do I really want to share my clients' data to other banks? These are, the biggest questions that comes up. So when I was smiling earlier talking about that COO of that bank in Hong Kong telling me, I don't want to share my data to the other banks, and everybody is laughing around him because he doesn't even understand that blockchain is about sharing data to make it more secure. So again, it's about democratization. How do you change the mindset of these people? I think they adopted like some, Fintech labs, etc. And they all have some CTOs now. I don't want to criticize them, but somehow these CTOs, they don't even know what they do sometimes. So there's a lot of budget that is invested into these banks. There are a few banks, especially a small one, and some e-banks from Germany, for instance, or Scandinavia. These guys are really trying to implement and to use blockchain for their clients. It's either for linking, the cryptocurrency space to their clients in order for them to use the crypto in the bank accounts, or it's for KYC. So the way I see it, it's going to come first from the small players or the governments. Singapore being one of them that is really pushing for it, MAS being like one of the most, bullish regulator towards blockchain, if we can say it this way. So let's see what's going to happen. I'm very optimistic about Southeast Asia. I think there is a real, topic about financial social inclusion, and Singapore might be the one pushing it around, but I'm very sure Malaysia, Aaron, Rene, and Surya, and everybody has a role to play in this.
Okay. Okay, so we have, thank you. We have another question from...
Good evening. My name is Siti. I'm from Bank Negara Malaysia, which is the central bank of Malaysia. My interest is in the development of Islamic finance. I think there is not yet dedicated blockchain projects on Islamic finance that I know of. Could the panel enlighten on how or what can be done, for us to accelerate development of blockchain solutions for Islamic finance? As you know, the Islamic finance, the principle is on risk sharing as opposed to risk transfer in the conventional space. Finance here means insurance, investment, takaful or Islamic insurance, investment, equity-based investment, and financing, not just remittance, but also equity funding of projects.
There was one platform that uses blockchain application. Well, it's more Bitcoin-centric. It's called Blossom. In 2015, 2014, if I'm not mistaken. It kind of went nowhere, but it's basically a micro lending platform based in Indonesia, started up by a, if I'm not mistaken, a foreign national who converted into Islam. But I have heard no news since then. So that was one application, a micro lending platform. I'm in touch with INSIF, the Islamic Finance University in UM. They are in the early stages of understanding in Bitcoin, but as I understand it, blockchain, the technology should be applicable, whatever is applicable in conventional finance should be applicable for Islamic finance as well. So, but I look forward to continue working with you about this topic. Thank you.
Anyone want to add?
We talked about SME. In terms of credit scoring, there's a lot to be done, and especially in underdeveloped countries in Africa. Malaysia is developed, but I guess has a lot of room for improvement. I think it's even in Malaysia, I heard that Rabobank, that Deutsche Bank, they made a proof of concept where basically they were helping SMEs to use blockchain for credit scoring information. So with more details, I would see supply chain logistics and supply chain finance could become a large ecosystems. So if you create, I don't know, I'm not in the central banks, there must be a fintech regulatory sandbox in Malaysia, and this is what I've heard. I don't have the details, but if this sandbox is helping SMEs, not only banks, to try the proof of concept, have some advantages, some reimbursement like Singapore is doing, for instance, paying part of the POCs, it's a good sign for these SMEs to try and to work with startups and have even more startups that are relevant in Malaysia. That use case, very quickly, it's about supply chain logistics. How do you make sure that supply chain is traceable and secure? And how do you link supply chain logistics with supply chain finance and credit scoring, etc.? So if you are able to prove what you do with your products and how reliable you are, and if you can rely on a platform where you can post basically some of your documents, I don't know, letter of credits, factoring, etc., then you might have some other parties on the other side that ask for financing. And they can trust it because it's based on blockchain. So it's just a use case I mentioned like right now like this, but I think that the first thing is to give the message to the startups, the SMEs, and not only to the banks, that you guys are here to basically help them in terms of regulatory steps, to go through less steps than what is required actually. Even if I don't have all the information, that's what Hong Kong, Singapore are trying to do. But I think Malaysia can have the capability to be even more flexible and do better than Singapore. There's no reason you would be following Singapore, right?
Miss City, yes, we have talked before the event shortly, and I agree fully that Malaysia should do a Islamic fintech blockchain hackathon to come out with ideas and then pursue them, because this is an underserved market segment, and the blockchain technology is able to disrupt even there. But it needs the sparks, the ideas, the people to do it. The Access Blockchain Association will be very happy to support such a hackathon, and we should talk more with Soraya and with you later. Yes. Yes.
Sure. Hi, my name is Juni, and I run a legal tech startup by the name of CanLaw. So we help people look for lawyers, and I think this particular event has been really useful for, I guess, highlighting that the use cases for blockchain go far beyond cryptocurrencies. And I think along those lines, I would be interested to know, and this question is directed to Soraya and Atasha. What are the sort of initiatives that are happening within Malaysia that we can get plugged into, that, or rather, what are the initiatives that are helping to proliferate the use of blockchain in other industries above and beyond fintech that maybe even my startup can get involved in? So that's the question for Soraya and Atasha.
I'll start first, if that's okay. The type of blockchain platform that you want to pick depends on the developers that you have on your site. There are varying degrees of difficulties to use these platforms, and it depends on what your developers can or cannot manage. So to answer your question about opportunities specific to Malaysia that's coming up, I mentioned before, but there will be a blockchain center coming up, launching in November this year. And that is completely funded by NEM Foundation. That's one type of blockchain platform. And they have seed money as well for pre-stage, I don't know what stage startup, but early stage startups. So that's one avenue that you can look for. Other types of opportunities would be different types of educational centers, academies, conferences, meetups, things of that nature.
We connect the dots and we bring relevant partners to support at the stage that you are in. So for example, if the stage that you are in is just to get awareness, and then we bring programs related to awareness, or you need something more technical, then we do something more technical. On the other hand is, we also work with corporates, and we also realize that corporates have also demand and also appetite to also explore blockchain. Hence, this is where we're going to bring our entrepreneurs or problem solvers who have the knowledge in blockchain to actually help the corporates. But that is actually a matching between demand and supply. So that's what we do from MDEC standpoint. Blockchain beyond fintech is not something that we are aggressive for now.
Hi guys, my name is Ben. I'm a VC. Can we disrupt economy with blockchain? For example, security numbers, our IC number. Can we become part of a blockchain on behalf of the government? So when people are being categorized as blockchain and the transaction is by the millions or the billions, and can this be implemented to create the future of digital economy where one currency can be valued, or a universal currency? Is that the future?
If I understood well the question, I'm actually not, but I think that I got your point. What I would say is, if you have this perspective of blockchain being the economy tomorrow, there's some ways to go for sure, and the rise in cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, Ethers, etc. Are a good sign, but today we still cannot use Bitcoin everywhere in shops or to make business, etc. So there is a huge way to go. We cannot talk about blockchain being the economy right now for sure. There are some countries like Japan, Russia, they're adopting it in some shops or airline companies to buy flight tickets. So it's one sign that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are getting democratized. The other one might be from governments. I know PBOC in China, they are working on a blockchain POC where they will issue Chinese yuan, for instance. And I mean, think about it. If they issue Chinese yuan and the Chinese use WeChat and Alipay to make all the transactions, then it makes sense for that economy to possibly use blockchain. And there is some downside, you know, think about traceability. They will exactly know what people do with their money, etc. But you're a VC, right? So you might have heard about the ICO rise, etc. There are more investment today made through ICO on blockchain projects than through VCs. I mean, it's the first time it happened. It's crazy, right? So I think where VCs can have a role to play, it's trying to have a look at that process and see why VCs are somehow getting disrupted. I think that there might be some sort of risk in the ICO process or bubbles going on for sure. But I think VCs should move on right now and try to see why all these startups, they feel like going for a VC can be a pain and can be, losing the control on their company, their management, etc. I think it's going to disrupt it positively. I think it's my opinion.
Okay, I just would like to add, in order to answer your question with one word, and the word is yes, and the question is only when, because blockchain is something like, internet, right? Internet in 1993 or 4 or 5 or something like this, yeah, the World Wide Web. So blockchain is something fixing the internet, right? So it's only the question how much time it will take until it disrupts, all the processes you mentioned, and just to liaison what Alex started about VC. I've been doing an ICO last year, and I talked to many VCs, my personal, acquaintances, and I've been introduced to many VCs in Europe, China, US, and at that time, at the end of 2016, it was no way, or practically no way, for a VC to invest into an ICO, into coins, into tokens. Only some few smaller ones. I'm saying the fund size of single-digit million US dollars. They wanted to invest, few tens or few hundreds of thousands into ICOs. But today it changed a lot. You can see, in Silicon Valley, we can see, Winklevoss Capital, all of them are investing into ICOs and blockchain, so not only in China, not only in Asia, but also in the US, also in Europe. So it's changing very fast, and the question is only when, not whether, but when.
Yeah, hi, my name is Adil. I work at one of the blockchain startups here in Magic. So the question to you guys is, how do you see blockchain handling the issue of scale, especially when you say fintech, right? You're talking about millions and millions of transactions a second. And blockchain essentially is connected across a vast variety of nodes, and this data needs to be replicated across all the nodes. So we were just having my discussion with a friend over here that I have, and then how do you see blockchain handling the scale of transactions as such, right? Because it can never be compared to a database, and that's why fintech companies go for databases naturally. But then if you were to bring blockchain into the equation, how do we handle the scale of, say, millions of transactions? Do you guys have any perspective on that, or any sort of private blockchain platforms that are being developed for among the finance companies and banks for this use?
Okay, so if I can, I'm not a fintech expert here, so I have to say our blockchain is not in the fintech area, but the question is about scalability, right? If I understood well, how can blockchains, let's say public chains, handle, let's say, millions of transactions per second or something like this, yeah? So the answer is basically, if you take Bitcoin, for a long time, Bitcoin used to have about 7 transactions per second. So if you deploy Bitcoin on all financial transactions that happen in Kuala Lumpur, for instance, in this city, it just would collapse. Yeah, it improved a little bit now, but for example, you take also Ethereum. It suffers from similar problems. But one of the solutions is to use another consensus algorithm, also valid for the public chains. If you take Ethereum, if you take Bitcoin, it's proof of work, POW. You have miners, computing some hashes that it doesn't make basically much sense for the society. Only basically to prove that I have done some work, to be able to participate in the voting process. So. But there are better ways, there is proof of stake, and one of the probably the best ones now is a delegated proof of stake, which creates kind of a federal organization when you have some nodes and some supernodes, and the nodes are voting for the supernodes, and only a few supernodes are running the blockchain, yes, and basically the way of let's say rating, or we're talking about the reputation, so public of rating those supernodes, depends on the actual latency, right, on the number of misses. So for example, with Decent, we are using a delegated proof of stake. We have 5 seconds blocks worldwide, but at the moment we have about 100 miners, kind of witnesses of the transaction. BitShares is using something similar, BitShares, Graphene, and so on. There are many implementations. I'm actually not sure what NEM is using, but it could be something similar maybe. So this is one of the way how to handle scalability, to get to tens of thousands of transactions. So if we talking about databases, for example, Cassandra and so on, we get maybe 2 million transactions per second, or something like this. But it's centralized. There is the Paxos, protocol to solve the Byzantine. Byzantine tolerance. We can go into fault tolerance. Yeah, so there is the fault tolerance, so we can get a lot of technical details. But I think that the theoretical limits of blockchains are probably in tens of thousands or maybe hundreds of thousands as of today. It's hard to get to a million TPS. So. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yes, NEM uses a similar consensus algorithm, which is a kind of a delegated proof of stake, even taking other values into consideration, the proof of importance to the network of that node. Nevertheless, these public networks have a limitation, and now it was said correctly, the latency is the issue here. When you have a network growing to a certain number of nodes, which you want to have this security of the network, that you can't have this 51% attacks on the network. When you run a public network, you have limitations. Private networks, these permissioned blockchain networks, are a possible solution. I heard the term federated blockchains, where there are blockchain networks run for a certain purpose. Yes, like I kind of consider the Decent network as a blockchain network with a special purpose. From the bigger view, because even I myself didn't come into contact too much with Decent before, but a general purpose network would be probably Ethereum. Yes, and that is not scalable sufficiently now to use for everyday payments and all the transactions we would like it to do. But people are forking these blockchain networks and are creating improved private chains, like sister networks, and you more or less even have a tutorial to follow. How do I create my own private chain? You link up a minimum of 3 to 4 computers and define the algorithms, and you have your own blockchain. And this one, in your own one little data center, you can have a latency of less than 1 millisecond, and you can do almost maybe hundreds of thousands of transactions. There are private chain implementations of the NEM network. It's called the Mijin network. This one is something what I am recommending to corporations with very big demand for transactions per second. But this is what I would say to the solution for the scalability: federated chains, permissioned chains, run by corporations, run by governments, for that sake.
Thank you.
Okay, so just to wrap up this, I'm sorry, I see a few other hands. I'm sorry, I have to end this session. So find your opportunities to disrupt before you get disrupted. So big round of applause to our speakers.